89 players reported to One Jets Drive yesterday for the Jets 2024 training camp. And the one person that didn't may come to a surprise to a lot of Jets fans. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of JetNation Live. We are your hosts, Dylan Terman and Chris Schubert. No Glenn Naughton tonight. He is vacationing, and Chris has something to say about that.
We are placing Glenn on the PUP list. Physically unable to perform, did not show up. So we showed up to JetNation Live. We showed up to our training camp of what this is. Glenn, a no-show. It's an unexcused absence. He's being fined the maximum amount that we are allowed to fine. And the reason why is because he's like 47 hours ahead of us in time. His wife is sleeping, and he can't get into her phone to be able to increase the data so that he could be here. Doesn't matter. Unexcused absence. He's not allowed to participate. We are fining him, and we're hope that he's back next time. We don't want this to turn into a holdout situation.
Yeah, we don't want this to be a contractual dispute, just like the Haason Reddick deal. So how dedicated is Glenn? Really, that's the start of tonight's show.
Sounds like he's a me guy, not a we guy right now. That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely. No, we hope that Glenn is enjoying his vacation truly. Hopefully he's in the good parts of France where the Olympic stuff isn't, poo-pooing on what he had planned with his family. So we'll have him back probably in the next week or two. For now, Chris and I will hold down the fort. As I said at the top, 89 players reported. One did not. It was not Glenn Naughton, but it was Haason Reddick. Haason Reddick, new to the Jets, never played a snap, hasn't even put on the pads yet for the green and white, and he's already holding out. From everything I've gathered on this situation, and Chris will get your take in a second, it seems as though the Jets and Haason Reddick and his representation had an agreement in place that they weren't going to up his money, but they could do a couple other things contractually to get him in the building. And at first it seemed like he verbally agreed to those things. He gets to the building, he signs, then he does not show up and kind of goes back on what he said, allegedly. I don't know whose fault it is at this point. It kind of seems like a 50-50 fault situation. I see a lot of people on Twitter blaming the Jets specifically for entering into an agreement with somebody that they knew could be, a flight risk, so to speak. And a lot of people are blaming Haason Reddick for just not honoring the contract that was verbally agreed upon. For me, I think it leans more toward the team. You have to do your due diligence, make sure these guys are going to show up. Obviously, things happen and they're out of your circumstance that you can't think of. And this is a kind of weird situation. Obviously, he was entering the last year of his deal, $14.5 million. Not all of it's guaranteed. He could ask for more guarantees, and I feel like the Jets were willing to do that. So now that they don't have Haason Reddick in-house, they don't know when he's coming back. I lean more toward it's the Jets' fault. Haason Reddick wants to get paid. This is his third or fourth team in the NFL that's kind of done this to him and played the run around, we want to see it before we pay you type of deal. And it's a business on both ends, but I lean that it's more towards the organization's fault. How do you feel, Chris?
I think three things can be true at the same time. I think
three. First it used to be two on this show. Now it's three.
For this specific instance, it's three. One, this isn't a big deal yet. It is not a big deal that Haason Reddick is not here. Chris Jones didn't play the first game for the Kansas City Chiefs. How'd that work out for them? There are examples of where this can linger a little bit longer than everybody feels comfortable, and it still ends up being okay. And I don't even think we're going to get to that point. So it's not a big deal yet. That's thing number one. Thing number two, a really bad look for the New York Jets that they find themselves in this situation. And thing number three, the Jets, I believe, have acted in good faith, yet here we are in this bad situation. All three of those things can be true at the same time. It's a bad look. The Jets acted in good faith, yet we still ended up here, and it's not a big deal yet. Those all three are allowed to work concurrently to give us this situation. Look, it feels clear in the reporting that an extension was offered to Haason Reddick before the trade was even official. They got permission from the Eagles to talk to Haason Reddick, and they said, look, this is the offer we would give you right now. If you're not interested in this offer, we're good. We're not going to give you a different offer. This is how this is going to go. Haason Reddick turned down that offer, but all indications were he planned on showing up, and he didn't. You want to put that on Haason Reddick? Fine. You want to say the Jets didn't do this correctly? They should have gotten a deal done? Fine. Here we are, July 25th, and Haason Reddick is not here. Am I worried? No. Am I panicked? No. If we get to the middle of August and this is still going on, then it's a big deal. It's a problem. But I'm here to tell you, airdrop into San Francisco right now. Are they overly concerned about Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, or do they believe in their front office to get those things done? How is it feel in Dallas with CeeDee Lamb not showing up? Do they feel like that's going to get done? Again, take yourself out of the Jets bubble for a second. This is going on all across the league.
Mm-hmm.
Big time franchises. Nobody would associate the San Francisco 49ers in the Shanahan era with being dysfunctional. They've got two players that are holding out. Hold out, hold in, however you want to describe it. The Green Bay Packers, a very well-run organization. Their franchise quarterback is a hold in right now in camp. This goes on all across football. Guess what? It's a big deal that Jordan Love isn't practicing for the Green Bay Packers right now, but it's not all doom and gloom, and it shouldn't be all doom and gloom for the New York Jets. Now, we start missing preseason games, then I start to get a little bit worried of, okay, he's on a new team. Is he going to understand everything on a short timetable? That I would start to get concerned if we got into the preseason environment and he's not with this team. But guess what? We're not there yet. And so my level of concern is probably at a 3 or 4 right now out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's really smart that you said that. Instead of taking the micro view of just looking at the Jets and all their situations, to take the more macro view of the NFL and just look around the entire league and see all the amount of players holding out. Because although an edge rusher is a premium position and it's an important one, and he's supposed to play a crucial role for this team, you do look at teams like the Packers and Jordan Love, and that's not a good situation either. San Francisco's in a bad situation, like you said. So it goes beyond just the Jets and Haason Reddick, and this is just the start of it. I will say that the Jets put him on the reserve / did not report list. I don't know if that's just a formality, but they were able to sign a second camp arm in Ben Bryant. Robert Saleh in his press conference said that it was more because Jordan Travis is going to be a long-term recovery and he's going to be on the NFI list and probably IR'd for the whole season at this point. But these guys aren't going to last long. So they used the Haason Reddick spot to make way for Ben Bryant. So they technically have 5 quarterbacks in-house, 4 that are healthy enough to play.
Yeah. And they're not going to rush Jordan. We talked about this. I was either last week's show or the week before. They don't need to rush him. They can let him go through this rehab and this recovery as long as it takes. He is not in the short or medium term plans for this franchise. And so the ability to use these roster spots for some maneuverability right now in camp is what you would want from a good, well-run organization. And that's what they're doing right now. And again, I get it. There's every reason in the world to be mad at the Jets for making the trade and not having the contract done and putting themselves into this situation. But it certainly feels as though there is blame to go around on both sides. And as long as we get to a place where Haason Reddick is playing in week 1 for the New York Jets, and I've said this, I've been very consistent on this. If he is out there on the field, patrolling around on that defense week 1 of the regular season, who cares what happened in training camp? Who cares if he was a holdout or a hold-in? Do you think the San Francisco 49ers are going to care by week 6 or week 7 when Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk are out there? It's going to be just an afterthought. They're going to laugh and be like, haha, remember when that happened for 2 weeks and everybody thought it was the end of the world? And then they're just going to move on. And that's the way the New York Jets and its fans have to operate, and it's how we should operate.
Yeah, once Haason Reddick's in the building, I think it's going to take a matter of a practice, maybe even a half a practice, for Jets fans to be bought back into the idea of having him on the team. Obviously, you have to question how bought in will he be, how up to speed will he be, and that's going to take some time. So you might have to see him in the preseason at this point if he does come back. But yeah, I'm not going to panic until, like you said, we get to the Commanders game on August 10th or the Panthers game on August 17th, and we still have no movement or no mention of Haason Reddick coming to One Jets Drive. I will say about Jordan Travis that we did our worst best case scenario for the rookies a couple weeks ago. And this is right on par with what we said for Jordan Travis. Just put him on the shelf for the entire season. Hopefully next year you can come back and look at him as somebody who can compete for quarterback 2. I know that I don't think you've done the road to glory yet in college football too, but that battle from quarterback 3 to quarterback 2, if you're bad, is tough.
I've heard it's
Jordan
difficult.
Travis has a bit of an uphill climb, but Tyrod Taylor's only on a 2-year deal. So next year, if you can mitigate the money, you can cut him and make Jordan Travis your QB2 next year, that'd be great. And I think he'd be better for it to sit and mentor and hold the clipboard. Let's see a rookie in street clothes that we know has potential, not like a Hackenberg situation.
Can you put up Charles's comments here real quick, because I
Yeah,
want
absolutely.
to I want to myth bust here a little bit, because they're tweets from reporters at training camp, and so we'll take them all with a grain of salt. But it
Yes.
is very clear that Will McDonald is going to be in the Huff role next season.
Yes.
He is going to be this team's Bryce Huff. He is not going to get any more snaps than those pass rushing downs where they are able to deploy him. He is not going to crack this rotation and be a mainstay. He is going to be in that very specific role that they had carved out for Huff last season. That is how it appears. With the way camp is going, the way they're talking about it, that's the role that they envisioned for him. And if he wants to try to eat at those snaps, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take him pushing the ball way uphill because he's fighting against it right now.
Yeah. Speaking of McDonald, I bookmarked a bunch of tweets from the beat writers today after practice, just so we can have like a bit of a talking point. And I think the Will McDonald stuff was really interesting. It was Jermaine Johnson at the his press conference, and he said that he called him a freak. That's what it was. I don't have the exact quote, but he called Will McDonald a freak, and he's super excited to see him in this second year leap. And I think I am too. I mean, I'm not fully bought in. I know there's some people out there like Buffalo Jet fan who are like super behind the Will McDonald hype train, and I'm behind it. I want to see a little bit more from him, but I know he's super explosive. So to see Jermaine talk about him in that way was really cool today. I don't know if you happened to catch any of that press conference, but Jermaine Johnson hinted, he clarified in the tweet that it's not like a full-time thing. It's not like it's going to happen every game, but he said that he's comfortable playing on the inside.
I love this. I saw this. Yes, I love this.
Yeah, so
this is what I want to hear out of Jermaine Johnson. Get me on the field. Put me wherever you want. I'm a Swiss Army knife. I'm going to go after the opposing quarterback. I loved it. I saw it on Twitter today while I was at work, and I was like, yes, that is what I want to hear from Jermaine Johnson. Yes, put me in the John Franklin Myers role. Move me all over the place. Make it difficult. Everybody knows Q's going to be in the middle, and he's going to gum up the works there. Guess what? If you then have to figure out where Haason Reddick and Jermaine Johnson are, and Hassan's going to be mostly in the same spot. But if you have to look up and identify where JJ is, that's a good problem to have. If you are the New York Jets on defense, you are going to create some problems for some opposing teams. So, yeah, I love these comments.
Yeah, and I believe we've all said it at this point, but we've projected the front four of Haason Reddick, Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, so you can utilize all three of your top edge rushers and your best pass rushing defensive tackle all at the same time, sort of like a pseudo NASCAR package. So Jermaine Johnson did tweet 7 hours ago. He said, LOL, I didn't say I'm rushing inside. I just said I can.
That's
Y'all
right.
chill. So yes, we will see 11 lined up in multiple different slots on the defensive line. We saw it happen last year. They stood him up over the center a couple times, doing like the copycat Micah Parsons type of thing. So very exciting for that part of the D line. And with that, we'll just open it right up into training camp news and notes. That's the theme of this show. Obviously, 2 practices in the books for the Jets. Yesterday's practice, not so great for Aaron Rodgers, but this one seemed to be more dialed in. Right from the jump, very first play, if you've seen the slow motion on Twitter, the daily dose of Aaron Rodgers slow motion passes that we're going to get throughout July and August that Chris and I talked about pre-show that are a little bittersweet at this point. Samini says, what a start to practice. In front of a loud crowd, Rodgers hits Garrett Wilson on a deep ball down the left sideline. Huge ovation, beat DJ Reed. And the one clip, I think it was a fan in the crowd had it, and he had him beat by 3, 4, maybe even 5 yards at one point in that route. So it was just special. I'm sure it was a little, all right, the fans are here. Let's start off with a big explosive play. Rodgers came out, play action, tucked the ball just deep down the left sideline. So always off to a nice start. And then it didn't end there for Rodgers. He ended the day super hot. Samini had him down 9 for 12 with the touchdown to Wilson, big first down completions in the move the ball period and a touchdown in the move the ball period. Allen Lazard with his second consecutive touchdown in practice. So your thoughts just real quick on Aaron Rodgers. Are you surprised that he's playing like this, or is this what we should expect?
I mean, this is what you'd like to see, right? It would be much different if we were coming on here and talking about Aaron Rodgers and the offense struggling at training camp. And I don't buy a lot into these narratives and these storylines that develop throughout training camp. Everybody's in the best shape of their life. Everybody looks awesome. And when everybody freaks out with the way people perform the first couple of days, relax, okay? Or to quote our quarterback, RELAX, please just calm down a little bit. But yes, it is nice to see, because I think while there was a lot of buzz and excitement last year, and we all know how it unfortunately went down 4 plays in, I think there's even more excitement because the team is probably better than they were a year ago. Like the roster is better than it was last year. And so that excitement can start to build again. I don't think it's been real for a lot of people, myself included, until we saw number 8 out there throwing to his teammates in this type of setting. So that makes it a little bit more real. It moves us a little bit closer to seeing this team play actual meaningful football again with the quarterback who's supposed to be the guy that brings this team, brings this chapter of Jets football into a new era. So yes, you can get excited over it. I understand. I saw all the social media clips of these great throws. I saw the slow-mo. Yes, it looked great. I just want to temper expectations a little bit because it is training camp. You know, it's basically a glorified dress rehearsal. But at the end of the day, yes, it is fun. It is exciting. And I'm not going to totally damper everybody's excitement here as we get closer to football.
I was going to say, Chris coming out with the fire hose to put out all the fiery hype.
Listen, I'm old enough to remember that when people show up to camp, they're in the best shape of their life, and then all of a sudden, 3 weeks into camp, they get hurt, and it's like, well, wait a minute, they were in the best shape. How is this possible?
How does this hamstring linger till week 12?
Right, he was in the best shape of his life in camp. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. Moving on from the quarterback position, because not much to note from Tyrod Taylor in the backups. Obviously, we know Ben Bryant is new to the system, and Andrew Peasley is probably going to get a ton of preseason work because Tyrod probably won't get that much, if any, preseason work at all. Moving on to the backs and the offensive line. This one made me really happy today, looking at all the quotes and the especially the Breece Hall press conference. When he said when asked about the offensive line, all he said is, "I smile because now I'm blessed." And that just makes me feel really good, because if you're able to run for 990, however many yards, 94, 95 yards last year behind however many combinations of offensive lines, what are you going to do when you have Tyron Smith, who by all accounts looked like a top left tackle at practice? Obviously, unpadded practice. They say it's not really conducive to offense and defensive line play, but tons of positives about Tyron Smith. So you give me Breece Hall, a healthy, hopefully offensive line that includes Tyron Smith. I think the sky's the limit. Breece said that he wants to go for 1,000. I feel like that should be the goal. Obviously, he said All-Pro and Pro Bowl as well, and I think that he's right there. He wasn't put into the NFL's top 100, and he really should have been, at least at the worst, in the 80s to 90s. Like, just put him on the list because you know he's a good player and he belongs there. But Tyron Smith had a good day. Morgan Moses and ABT off to the side. So you had Schweitzer and Max Mitchell in on the right-hand side of your offensive line. Max Mitchell did well against all the edge rushers that he faced, according to the beat writers. He had a very good day. So hearing all this positive news about the offensive line, obviously you're still missing 40% of it with AVT and Moses, but are you excited a little bit more about this offensive line, because it's kind of a big turnaround from last year?
Yeah, you should be very excited. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's out there. Despite, AVT and Morgan Moses working on the side, they don't really have a ton of limitations right now. This is part of a plan to get these guys ready for the game. Tyron Smith is out there participating with his teammates. There's not a concern. Every day we get through training camp, every day we get through one of these sessions, and we're not talking about a major injury. I mean, we can talk about this now because it wasn't that serious. But Illuminor goes down minutes, seconds into camp for the New York Giants. One of their big offseason acquisitions to help protect Daniel Jones in a really important season for Daniel Jones and the team. One of your star prized free agents that you go in to help solidify your offensive line goes down immediately, and it looks like it's going to be a disaster. Guess what? The Jets haven't had a day like that yet. Good. We can breathe a sigh of relief that we haven't gone through that. Now, fortunately, just looks like it was sore. He's fine. Not a big deal. But there's those brief moments where you go, oh no, here we go again. So every day we have where we don't have that, where we don't have those conversations, to me is a good day for Jets training camp. I don't necessarily care about the results. I don't necessarily care how good a quarterback looks, because the quarterback that will never be named on this show again put together a decent amount of practices where people were wowing up and down about, oh, he's back. This kid's going to take over this year. And then we saw what happened during the regular season. So the results don't matter. It's healthy, and just build that chemistry as a team.
Yeah, that's all it's about, is development and health. At this point of the game, development and health, just get to the season. There's no point in trying to do too much, getting hurt. We've already seen Mekhi Blackman for the Minnesota Vikings, who was in line to be a potential starting slot corner. He already tore his ACL. So as soon as I saw
tore
that,
his ACL in the Rams.
Who's that?
Kendrick, the corner for the Rams, torn ACL.
Yeah.
I mean, so or feared to have a torn ACL. I mean, these injuries are happening all over the place, and so you breathe a sigh of relief, and every day that the Jets don't have Robert Saleh going to the podium talking about an injury, that's a good day. That's a good day. It doesn't matter what happens out on the field. It is a good day for the New York Jets.
Yeah, seriously. Charles in the chat asked, how did the running backs look? So Breece Hall, they said, looked really good behind the starting offensive line that was missing a couple pieces. Braylon Allen, they said, looked pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
I did see a specific tweet. I want to say it was Nick Faria said that Braylon Allen's footwork in pass protection looked like he was a veteran. And that is music to my ears, because the quickest way for a running back to stay on the field is to be good in pass protection. You can drop a pass or two. If you blow an assignment and get your quarterback lit up, you're getting pulled off the field.
It's why Izzy Abanikanda couldn't get on the field as a rookie. They were concerned about his pass protection. And oh, by the way, if you're keeping track, Izzy Abanikanda not getting some of the major workload, like as the 1, 2, or 3 running back. So the writing's kind of on the wall here, folks. I'm sorry, but the writing's on the wall.
There's a couple nice tweets about the potential 4th running back on this team who might take his spot, and that's Tariq Cohen. Even Tariq Cohen had some flashy moments, I should say. Rich Cimini called him video game-like. I think it was Connor Hughes said he doesn't have the speed, but he still has the agility. He had a nice cutback. They did say if it was a padded practice, Will McDonald probably would have swallowed him up because it was a nice cutback where Will McDonald set the edge very well. So Tariq Cohen could be pushing Israel Abanikanda for that running back 4 spot. But for now, it seems like Braylon has the number 2 spot in hold. Isaiah Davis, we don't really hear much about him. So maybe even Tariq Cohen is running back 3. And that would be an interesting development.
Yeah, it certainly would. And again, I think the top 2 spots on this running back group are pretty ironed out. It's just going to be who gets the third share of those carries. And again, the special teams aspect of it too is going to play into it. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get an answer to that until we get to some preseason games and we get to see these rules in effect.
Yeah, I think that'll be the best time to see 1, special teams, and 2, just running backs in general, because unpadded practices and padded practices against your own team, you don't really see the running game flourish the way that it would in preseason or regular season. One more note on the offensive line before we flip to the receivers is that 3 false start penalties on the day. 2 were committed by John Simpson. 1 was committed by Tyron Smith. In all 3 instances, each player that was committed of the penalty was taken off the field for at least 1 snap. So you like to see a little bit of accountability taken by the Jets here. Even Tyron Smith is not, bulletproof when it comes to punishment. He had a false start. He went on the bench and sat for a couple reps. This might be the best thing I heard all day. And that sounds so silly, but it's the accountability. It's the coaches realizing, hey, I'm in deep shit if I don't get these guys ready to play and we don't have a good season. This is, to me, is Keith Carter saying, I need to take a new approach. I was known as the yeller that didn't get through to my guys. So hopefully this little bit of accountability is going to help get these guys to where we need to be. So probably one of my favorite notes of the day from training camp.
I think there are a lot of people that get frustrated, and certainly a good stretch of time last year got frustrated with Robert Saleh, with the mistakes that were being made, what felt like every single week the same mistakes were being made, and there wasn't any accountability at the podium. He wasn't throwing players under the bus, and it didn't feel like during the games there was that in-game accountability. And listen, I don't think you are ever going to see Robert Saleh go up to the podium and absolutely destroy a player. It's just not going to happen. That's not who he is. That's not the way he coaches. And unfortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you feel about this, that's not the way a lot of people coach in all sports, not just football, in 2024. So I just don't think that's the way he's going to conduct himself. But if you can plant the seeds now here in training camp, that there is that accountability, that we are going to hold you accountable. Now, hopefully we file this away and we remember it. But if we get to week 4 and there are these penalties, we can draw back on this and say, okay, I watched you do this in training camp. I watched you take people off the field. You got to do it here too. And I think that's going to maybe lower the temperature a little bit with how we feel about some of these things. And again, a new approach from Keith Carter might be good. Aaron Rodgers' presence on this offense, I think, is going to clean a lot of that stuff up as we go through. And so let's see how this ultimately plays out the rest of the season, or the rest of training camp and into the season. But again, I like to see these little things. Again, it is a little thing in the grand scheme of things, but it's important to see those breadcrumbs being laid in the early part of training camp. If you see my eyes averting this direction, I'll raise my hand. Glenn's not here. He's unexcused absence. The Mets are playing a very important 4-game series with the Atlanta Braves, and it's on the TV here. Okay, so if you see my eyes avert this way, no, I'm not ignoring everybody. Just something has caught my eye in the baseball game. No, you're muted. You're muted. We're going to fine you for being muted. Glenn got a fine for not being here. Smaller fine for you.
Smaller fine for me.
It's a smaller fine. It's only
Chris
probably
is
like
just doling out fines.
$5 fine. I don't even think I have that power. But here I am, just levying punishments.
This is what happens when the Mets sweep the Yankees. Chris comes in here with a new attitude. And he comes slinging the fines out. We do have a question here in the chat about Izzy Abanikanda.
Sure.
From Beth Page Chris. With Izzy being one of the fastest guys on the team, maybe get him outside once in a while to be a matchup problem. I don't know if you mean specifically like outside as a receiver, like if you were to go 5 wide and you had him outside. I'm not quite sure he has the route running ability to beat somebody on the outside route running, but if you want to give him like some stretch runs or some outside zones just to like let him take a couple steps, put his foot in the ground and go, which is what I thought he did best at Pittsburgh, maybe you can find a spot for him. But I feel like there's already so much talent in the room that is suppressing him. And I'm not even saying that they're suppressing such a strong talent in Izzy. I just feel like with all the people that they have ahead of him now on the depth chart, you could probably find that asset. You could probably find a Tariq Cohen to run your outside zone or your halfback stretch or your halfback toss and get him out in space instead. And I don't know if Izzy has the capabilities of being a wide receiver. If you're going to go 5 wide and put a running back out there, I'd rather it be Brees or Braylon or Tariq Cohen anyway. So I don't know if this is conducive for Izzy getting on the field.
I like the idea, but in order to carve out that role for him or carve out those plays for him, he has to provide value someplace else on the roster to justify the roster spot, because you are not just going to keep Izzy Abanikanda to do this role. He needs to be able to provide something someplace else, right? It's the perfect example. I'll use Kansas City as an example. They have used Kadarius Toney in a variety of different ways. The reason why they're able to do that is because he provides some level of value as a wide receiver that they then say, okay, we're going to give you these touches as a running back. Okay, we're going to do these cool, creative things with you. It's why Deebo Samuel is so valuable to the 49ers, right? Okay, you're a decent wide receiver, above average wide receiver, but you're just a superstar playmaker, and so we can carve out these little plays for you out on the field. The problem is I don't know what that first initial skill set's going to be for Izzy Abanikanda. He's not the RB1. It doesn't look like he's the RB2, and it certainly doesn't look like he's the RB3. So if I can't have you as one of my top 3 running back options, I can't keep you on this team to maybe throughout the course of the season have 15 to 20 plays for you? Because they're not going to do that a ton. They have Garrett Wilson. They have Mike Williams. They have Allen Lazard, Malachi Corley. We know the group. We've been through it. So he's going to be at most the 6th or 7th option. So you're going to now have a guy who's your RB4 and would be the 7th or 8th passing option. I'd rather put Breece Hall in the slot as a receiver and be creative that way. And so I just don't know if it adds up to being able to carve out an important role for him. And listen, I know a lot of people saying, when are we going to take advantage of Izzy's speed? And everyone's trying to find a role for Izzy Abanikanda. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't think he makes the team. I do not think Izzy Abanikanda is going to make this team. They told you that with the 2 draft selections that they made. They told you that by signing Tariq Cohen. They with their actions, they told you how they felt about Izzy Abanikanda. Because if they felt he was primed and ready to be the RB2 to provide a different look behind Breece Hall, they would not have spent back-to-back draft picks on a running back. They wouldn't have signed a guy who hasn't played for the last 2 seasons. They're telling you with their actions how they feel about Izzy Abanikanda. Which, by the way, goes back to my original complaint about the pick in the first place, that I didn't necessarily love the pick at the time, and it certainly hasn't aged well. Always muted again. It's a double fine. It's a double fine.
Doubled up on the fines, dude.
Unfortunately, now it crosses over into the Glenn tier fines because he did it twice.
That's crazy. Just compound interest.
That's brutal.
Chris is making tons of money today. Hawk says in the chat, and this goes right with what you're saying. Is he going to the practice squad? Writing is on the wall. They aren't going to roster a player with no real role in the offense, and that's basically what it comes down to.
Can you put up Beth Page Chris's comment, because it's I think it's very valid, right?
This one?
No, the most recent one about shame to give up on a 21-year-old with that kind of home run ability. I agree, but this goes back to why they drafted him in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
They already had Breece Hall, who was their home run hitter. So Izzy was being drafted to be the RB2. When you're the RB2 on a team, even if we have fantasized on this show, at least I have, about the Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon workload share with what they're trying to create with their running back room. Even in that type of environment, the secondary option doesn't get the massive amount of opportunities to showcase that home run ability.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was already a limited workload. And they had a bunch of guys on the roster that we liked. And it never fit. It was square peg round hole from the get-go. And then after it was square peg round hole, the front office basically stood up on the chair, waved the pom-poms, and said, we don't like Izzy Abanikanda anymore. They made it extremely clear with their actions. So I get it. And if there's a place that he can go where he can find that role and be the player that we think he can be, I'm going to root so hard for Izzy Abanikanda, because he's come here and he's worked his tail off and he's done everything this team has asked for him. It's just a bad set of circumstances that has led to this. So I will root for him where he goes next. I just don't think it's going to be with the Jets in 2024. It would be a pleasant surprise if he made this team, would be my take on it.
I've heard this saying a couple times throughout NFL podcasts, and it's follow the money. And I want to kind of adjust it a little bit to say follow the assets. Where did the team apply their assets? And a lot of it was spent at the running back position. So what does that say about what they think about the people in-house? We know how they feel about Breece Hall. They did a whole documentary about Breece Hall on their YouTube channel. They love Breece. He's a top 4 player on the team. We've gone over that. Izzy Abanikanda, that clearly shows that they don't really like him if you're going to bring in 3 new faces that at a bare minimum are at the same or above him on the depth chart without even having to do anything for the team. So I'm going to tell on myself a little bit, and I'm going to make another college football reference.
Love it.
But when you recruit a player and you're deciding whether you need to redshirt him or not,
right,
you look to see if they have that one special ability, that 96 speed or whatever you could take advantage of. Izzy Abanikanda doesn't necessarily have that. So when you're looking at your roster and you're looking at who to put on the practice squad, Izzy doesn't stand out to you, he might go to the practice squad then.
He doesn't have that one trait that I can't find someplace else on the roster.
Exactly.
That's the point, right?
Yes.
Izzy has traits, and Izzy has things that can help.
I didn't want it to come off like that, right?
But I can find players who are going to be probably more impactful and be in more impactful roles that also have that trait. Hawk talked about it. This is what they're going to do with Malachi Corley. They're going to move him all over the place. He's going to just be they're going to break the huddle, and it's just going to be like, where's Waldo? Find Malachi Corley, because he's going to be somewhere different every time they break the huddle. And so, again, I like Izzy. I do not want this to be an Izzy bashing fest. I would love for us to move on and we could talk about some of the other storylines. The math doesn't math here for me. I cannot get to a place where I think he's going to be one of the 53. If he is, great. I would be thrilled about that. I just think the 2 draft picks are going to make it over him from this past year's class, and he's just going to be going someplace else. And you watch, a team will pick him up, and he'll have a nice role. He will.
Yep. So we'll talk about this with another position on defense, but if you just played the game of take a running back trait and then rank the running backs that the Jets have based on that one specific trait, Izzy probably doesn't crack the top 3 other than like long speed. That's probably the only one that he has any advantage in. So it just goes to the point that he might not have, or that he has traits. There's just players with more talent that have similar or better of the same trait.
Charles, come back to me. Come back to reality here, because you're living in a fantasy world.
Is this the package, the trade package?
And I'm not sure what fantasy world it's in. I'm going to need you to explain this to me. One? The New York Jets, in a win-now season, with subpar corner depth, okay, are going to take DJ Reed. Some might say the best corner on the team. Sauce Gardner says DJ Reed's better than him. He's going to take DJ Reed, Izzy Abanikanda, and a 2025 third, which I don't even think they have, because I think that was in the deal for Haason Reddick. I don't even think they have the 2025 third, but let's just say they do for a second. They're going to take all of those, and they're going to acquire 2 assets for not this year. They're going to acquire a 2025 second and a 2027 sixth. They're going to make the team worse in 2024. They're going to take one of the strengths of their team, the fact that they have a 1 and a 1A cornerback room. They're going to purposefully remove that to get draft picks for years in which we don't even know if Joe Douglas is going to be the guy making the picks. Charles, please come back to me. Come back to me, man. This is not rooted in reality. The New York Jets are probably closed for business when it comes to making big splashes and big trades. That's it. There might be some small things, but DJ Reed's going to be on this team in 2024. Trading him would be a mistake. That would be a disaster.
Yeah, I can see if the team doesn't want to pay him, but to get rid of him before his contract runs out and just let him test the free agency market, if that's not the path for DJ Reed, then he should be on the Jets. That's the only other opportunity. Don't get rid of him at all. I mean, if this is a package that you actually want to trade, DJ, Izzy, and a third, you better be getting somebody like Devontae Adams at the trade deadline, because you need somebody that's going to help your team this season make the run. DJ would obviously hurt that, like you said. So yeah, not on board with that trade. Dano does come in. This is the last thing before he flips to the receivers. I promised we kept 4 RBs and 1 fullback last year, assuming Ruck at half H-back would help a lot. Easy to practice squad. If they keep 4 RBs and 1 fullback, I would be surprised. I think they should keep 4 RBs and no fullback, and they should just let Ruckert do it.
I don't think you're going to get your wish there. And I don't disagree
Bodden
with you and Glenn.
Team.
You and Glenn have been on this for a while. See, that's how you're professional. You do not sneeze with the mic hot. So this is why I don't get fined and everybody else on the show does get fined. Again, you and Glenn have been on this. You want to get rid of Nick Bodden, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's just, it ain't happening. He's going to be on this team.
Yeah, so you're keeping 5 backs, 4 running backs, 1 fullback. To me, you're probably keeping Tariq Cohen. With that, let's talk about the wide receivers. Just 3 quick things of note. Garrett Wilson, dominant. He kind of abused DJ Reed today multiple times. He had a one-on-one matchup with Sauce that I believe Sauce broke up the pass. He even got DJ Reed on a DPI. So Garrett Wilson in midseason form, and we love to see it. I think it's the number change from 17 to 5 that really helps players perform better, because he said he's like, I feel like me again, So Ohio State, Garrett Wilson, here we come. Allen Lazard, 2 touchdowns in 2 consecutive practices, getting that confidence boost back. And you said it in the pre-show, and I tend to agree that this is the one storyline that I do want to get behind as far as this player looks good, because this is somebody who struggled mightily last year, and it was probably a confidence issue. If your star quarterback goes down, and that was the reason that you came to the team, and now you're stuck with he who won't be named, I mean, yeah, you're going to be a little upset and probably a little checked out. Obviously not making excuses for him, but to see him locked back in essentially and come into play, I think is really good to see from Lazard. And then Xavier Gibson, mysterious injury. He limped off the field today with a trainer right at the end of practice. We don't have a word. Saleh, I think, speaks before practice, if I'm not mistaken. So we won't know until tomorrow what the injury is, if there is any update at all. But those are the 3 quick wide receiver notes.
Yeah, this is a group that has just a lot of eyeballs on it. It goes beyond Garrett Wilson, right? There's a lot of eyeballs on this group and what Rodgers can do with this group, because it's probably the part of the offense that you feel the most concerned about. You feel really good about Breece Hall. You feel really good about the offensive line. You feel decent enough about Rodgers coming back from the injury, but do they have enough at the wide receiver position? And so it's going to be the group that we pay attention to probably every single day at camp to see who shows up and who balls out and who gains ground. And I am not a believer in training camp storylines. I joke all the time about, showed up in the best shape of his life, a big season incoming. Like, it is nauseating, the storylines that we try to buy into. I believe there is value in the idea of Allen Lazard regaining his confidence this training camp this summer with Rodgers throwing him the ball, and that can lead to him having some level of success. I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 on this team, but if he is a non-zero, right, if he is just something of value to this team, that brings up the floor I think we all have for this room in 2024. So it is a good thing that he's off to a good start. I'm not going to put 100% stock into Summer of Lazard. I've seen that everywhere, and I love it. I love that people are buying in, or the Summer of Allen, or however it's being phrased. I get it. I love the idea of trying to buy in, and I love the idea of supporting the player, right? I love the idea, like in New York, we're harsh, man. We are harsh on our teams. We are harsh on our players. Like, I'm a Mets fan. I watch a team. You go to a ball game, man, they get after you when you're struggling. It's hard. But you know what? Let's wrap our arms around this guy. He's going to be here at least for this season. We want him to succeed. We want him to do well. And so I love that if he goes onto social media, he's going to see that there's probably a good amount of support and there's a lot of rallying that's occurring around him. And I think fans don't understand the impact that stuff can have. That stuff does make a difference when a player goes on social media, because they do, and they see that the rally that those fans are going to have for him, that can further that confidence. Again, so I think he's going to go back to being, the receiver that he was in Green Bay. I don't know. We'll see. But I think the idea of this fan base rallying around Allen Lazard and rooting for him this summer, I think is going to be, it's a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. I think that's really important with Allen Lazard specifically, because if you're somebody who is struggling with your confidence, having a down season, and you go on social media, and I know athletes, they're very wishy-washy with the whole social media idea as it is. But if you go on social media and all you see is people bashing you and, no love, essentially, like, that's not a good look. You're not going to want to like play. It's very hard to get yourself back up if you are struggling with your confidence to then do that. I know if I posted a picture, I do construction for a living. If I posted a picture of my work and a bunch of comments were like, that's terrible.
That's awful. Yeah, you suck. You're the worst.
Go do something else. Like, I would feel really bad. And then less and less I would post about my work. So I could definitely see that, but we should definitely at this time, especially it's July, like, why are we being negative to any degree other than just being Jets fans? But like, let's show these guys some love and support while they're just trying to, like I said, develop and stay healthy and get to the regular season.
Yeah, right. I'm fully in on the Summer of Lazard from a fan base perspective of trying to support him as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at worst, he turns into a mildly productive wide receiver 4 for your team. Great. That's if he's well better than we thought.
If he's the player he was last year, he stunk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that player is going to actively hurt the team. That's not going to be the thing that sinks the Jets in 2024.
Yep. And he was on that graphic of potential camp cuts. He was on the list of names. And I don't know who curated the list, but I agreed, but then I disagreed, because it's like, you got to see what he can do with Rodgers, and you got to give him at least some benefit of the doubt. Yep. With that, we're going to flip over to the defense. We obviously talked about Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald a little bit. Will McDonald did have a nice pass batted down at the line of scrimmage thrown by Aaron Rodgers. But the best player on the defensive line, maybe the entire defense of the day, seemed to be newcomer Takkarist McKinley. All the beat reporters were loving everything he was doing. Obviously, it was against the 2s and the 3s, but I think they said he had back-to-back sacks against Tyrod Taylor or Andrew Peasley, one of the two. I know he had back-to-back would-be sacks, and they said that he looks pretty special. This is somebody who was taken in the first round. Probably a draft moment I will remember for as long as I am alive. Him bringing the picture of his grandmother out and screaming on stage was just electric, and he kind of fizzled out in Atlanta, and then I think he bounced around a couple teams. Now he's here. This is the spot for him scheme wise, so I think it'd be nice to see. So I'm glad to see him doing well for the first 2 days of practice. Any thoughts on the defensive line other than they're phenomenal?
They're phenomenal. It's the strength of this team. As they go, this entire team is going to go. We know the drill. We know how this is going to work. I'm excited to see all the depth pieces. Like, the one thing I think we can appreciate a little bit more is when they sign guys like Kinlaw, like Tack, and you go, what do they think they can do with those players? Like, what do they see that we don't see? Because I'll turn on the tape and I can watch a player. They must feel like there's something. They can
unlock it.
And with this coaching staff, with what we've seen so far, you get excited about that. It's like when in baseball, a team that's known for being able to produce some high-quality relievers takes a guy who has been struggling with another team to make a trade, and you go, this guy's got a 7 ERA. Why do they want him? And then all of a sudden he goes out there and they make like 2 tweaks, and now he's one of the best relievers in baseball. You're like, I get it now. That's what the Jets are with defensive linemen. So when they pick somebody up, when they sign somebody, is it always going to mean that they're going to find success? No, but I get excited because they must think that there's something there that they can tap into, which would make this already great group even better.
Yep. And the one last thing I guess I will say about the defensive line group is 2 UDFAs. Um, I think it's Braden McGregor, and damn it, now I'm forgetting the other guy's name, and I lost a tweet. I hate the way Twitter refreshes. Braden McGregor and another UDFA defensive lineman were said to be bigger looking than Michael Clemens. So that was kind of my issue with the defensive line all year, is I felt like they lost size and instead they added speed, like Haason Reddick, and the obvious significant role upgrade for Will McDonald. I thought they were getting leaner and faster, but to see that these 2 UDFAs are bigger than Michael Clemens, who's probably your biggest edge, is pretty cool to see that they've added both speed and size. Obviously, these UDFAs may not make the team. Eric Watts, there it is. I knew if I talked long enough, I remember. Eric Watts and Braden McGregor looked bigger than Michael Clemens. And Michael Clemens, I know he lost weight and then he kind of bulked back up because they're really confused on how to use him. So it's nice to see that they're not only just adding speed, but adding size as well.
Yeah, listen, it's stuff to get excited about, and I love this time of year because I choose to be the eternal optimist this time of year. I choose to be super excited about what this team could be, and these are the types of storylines we like to buy into or at least pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing big on the linebackers or cornerbacks other than DJ Reed kind of getting a little worked by Garrett Wilson today. But, I mean, defense is going to win some, offense is going to win some. We know how that goes. The one thing I did want to talk about, Chuck Clark spoke to the media today. The one quote that I'll take from him is that he said he considers himself a jack of all trades as a safety who can play in coverage and in the box. This is something we've talked about. I was very excited for the signing of Chuck Clark last year. Obviously, the ACL prevented him from showing anything. But this is the position group that I wanted to talk about, similarly to the Izzy Abanikanda thing. If you take safety traits and you line up across the board horizontally, and then you stacked the safeties vertically, Chuck Clark is probably at the top of 75 to 80% of those traits. I don't know what Chuck Clark does that somebody else in that room does better. And that's not an indictment on the rest of the team, but I think it just goes to show that the room isn't a great room, but Chuck Clark makes it a serviceable room for sure.
I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised when Chuck Clark takes the field for this team, because I think after we traded for him last year, there was a lot of excitement about what the possibilities were, and then he immediately gets hurt, and it goes into the background of all of the other noise of the 2023 season for the New York Jets. And going into this season, I think he's just forgotten about. And so when I think you go out there and you start watching games and you start to see just a steady workhorse guy on the back part of that defense show up every single week and play the way we know he's capable of playing, I think that's going to excite some Jets fans. And they're going to go, oh, that's why the Jets traded for this guy. It's going to be an aha moment that we should have gotten last year, but it'll be a little bit delayed gratification, I think, because I'm super excited to see him patrol the back part of this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'll throw in another quote. He was asked about Aaron Rodgers, and he said that even in his 8th year in the NFL, he's still learning things from playing against Aaron Rodgers, even in practice. So if that just doesn't speak to the waves that having a good quarterback can create, and I know we saw it last year on Hard Knocks with the Ulbrich speech, when it was like the quarterback has nowhere to throw it. Like, the defense, you guys did a perfect job. And he still got it there for a red zone touchdown. So it's like, no matter what, this guy's going to elevate the entire team and make every single person, every single coach. Shit, it might make the cafeteria ladies, work a little harder. And that's great. That's the type of energy that you need. And I know the outside noise surrounding Aaron Rodgers is pretty negative. And if he goes to Egypt, all hell breaks loose for missing 4 hours worth of practice, essentially. So to come in and be dialed in, have the team ready to go, I think it just speaks volumes to the mission that the team is on. And I'm selling that mission. I'm ready for it. Like, I want the team to go as far as they can. 12, 13 wins is obviously a little overzealous, but like, let's get 10, 11 and make the playoffs. Let's end this streak. No news.
Aaron Rodgers to Egypt, Glenn to France. Just a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, it's like this guy. No news of note to speak of with the special teams. I did see a clip of Thomas Morstead signing some fans' autographs after the practice today.
So we love that. You know what? That's a good day for the special teamers. That's a great day.
Yeah,
That's
if you could just come off the field, sign some autographs,
that's
call
great.
it a day.
That's good work, Tom. Good work.
Go take an ice bath. Yeah,
it's perfect. Great
solid.
job.
So, any thoughts? Anything that I didn't mention that you might have caught that you wanted to bring attention to today from its first 2 days of a non-padded practice?
Yeah, listen, it's exciting, right? I think my takeaway that I want to just leave everybody with is it's okay to be excited, but we're at least I am, just temper the excitement a little bit. Not everything is all pro season incoming, and not everything is the worst thing in the world. And right now, the Jets have both ends of that coin, right? Everybody's freaking out with a lot of the stuff that you're seeing with the Garrett Wilson play. And everyone's like, oh, no, here we go, big time. Okay, easy. And then on the other end, it's the Haason Reddick thing. Everyone thinks it's, oh, here we go. The Jets are Jets are jetsing again. Easy.
Little Jets, yep.
Just look around the league. Everybody's doing this. Again, I gave you an example from last year of Chris Jones missing a game. He missed a game. He did not participate in a regular season contest. There's only 17 of them. He didn't participate in a game. It was the top storyline. I think they played on either Thursday or Sunday Night Football that year, and they were talking about it in the middle of the game. He's not out there. If we get to that point, then yes, be upset, be frustrated. But again, just relax, relax. Enjoy the training camp, get excited, feel that momentum building. It's going to be a fun season, I think, regardless of what happens. And it's fun. I get it. Be excited, but just don't be on the extremes. Find yourself just a nice, happy medium that you can ride out. You can be critical when it's warranted. You can be frustrated when it's warranted, but you also can be praiseful, and you keep yourself very even-keeled going into the season. I know it's tough, but this is the time to practice, because once we get into the season, there might not be a lot of it to go around.
Let's leave the listeners with a little bit of positivity until next week's show.
Glenn will be back next week. Yeah.
What percentage chance do you give that Reddick is suited up against the 49ers week 1?
95%.
Awesome.
I will leave 5% for just the NFL being the NFL, but I think it is a 95% chance he's on the field week 1 against the 49ers.
I hate when people say 90% of the time. So I was going to say 92%, and I think 92, and it's a very high percent chance is what we're trying to say. Is the panic meter shouldn't even be close to sounding that break glass if needed.
3 out of 10.
Yeah, put the hammer down. Don't break glass if needed. We're not there yet. It's July 25th, like Chris said earlier in the show. Like, once we get to August, and then we can start having that conversation. But all signs pointing to positivity, health and development are the key right now. Padded practice begins on Monday. I do believe we have a representative for JetNation, KRL. He is out there. He was there the last 2 days of practice. So thank you so much for your news and notes that you've put out on the JetNation website. Everybody should be tuned in on that one, jetnation.com. Log into the forums. Excuse me. I know Glenn would be mad if he ducked out on today's show and we didn't talk about the forums for him. So join the forums over on jetnation.com. It's a great discussion. Tons of great content there. For Chris Schubert, you can follow him on Twitter at Chris Schubert _. You can follow me at D Terman. Follow Glenn at Jets Picks, I believe is his Jets _picks. And follow JetNation at JetNation on all social media platforms. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.